Thank you.
Hi.
Silent disco.
Hello, everyone. Oh, that's very loud. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to be talking to our industry heavyweights, hopefully in name only. Success and failure, again, less on the failure, more on the recovery. So thank you to our panel today. Hot off the press, two of our keynote speakers, one that's literally run across to help and discuss some of the opportunities, best practice, and some of the challenges that they've overcome, and hopefully share with you some great stories. So I'm going to kick off by just introducing myself, and then I'll lead on to the panel. So my name's Annie Mamigonians. So I've worked in pharmaceuticals, telco, IT, most industries apart from where our learned panel are from now, which is retail. We're going to hear a lot about it. I'm very excited to learn more. And most recently, I've spent a number of years in financial services, and I've been working in customer experience, employee experience, using lean and agile methodologies during that time, and having a great deal of success combining those. So today we're going to be talking to our esteemed panel. Very excited to get them to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their brands and what their CX or customer kind of ambitions are. So we're going to start with Nick. That's okay.
Hi, Nick Stragnell. I'm head of e-commerce and digital marketing for Raging Bull, a menswear clothing brand. I do that on a fractional basis, and I consult for a few other brands and businesses and agencies as well. I can't hear a word you're saying when you speak. I'm going to get some headphones.
Millie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Millie. I'm head of e-com for Soho Home, which is the interiors collection that's part of the Soho House group. And Soho House was founded 25 years ago. Soho Home a little bit more recently, in 2016, and it was really born out of a desire for members to be able to recreate the Soho House spaces within their own homes. We launched with just a few products, which were like for like from the houses, and then since then, we've grown quite dramatically. For our autumn-winter season launch, we launched over 300 products, really moving into new areas, so at-home bar, drapery, vanities, which is the bathroom cabinetry in bathrooms, and we've seen some really good initial successes from the season launch. So that's me in a nutshell.
Fabulous, thank you. And SJ?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. I'm SJ Grabiec. I'm the Global Head of CX and Fraud and Payments for AllSaints, and John Varvatos, who's our sister company. My background is mainly in customer experience, but then prior to that, about a 10-year career in department stores, mainly in the beauty industry. And then prior to that, if you would believe it, I was actually a law graduate, and I worked in sort of risk management and risk management consultancy prior to that. I think just top line from an AllSaints perspective, our focus is very much on sort of improving our direct-to-consumer function and focus, actually, which has been, I'd say, a slightly challenging process, but I think we're making headway now. But I do think our vision generally, and mine as a CX leader, really is to keep the customer at the heart of everything, and just remember that the customer is one of the stakeholders that's not in that meeting with you, and to really make sure you represent them properly.
Thank you everybody. So, nice headphones, Nick.
It's much better.
Thank you. So, okay, we're going to go to the first question. I'm going to start again with Nick. Why not? So the first question is going to be, can you give me an example of a CX initiative you've led for your brand, but where you had a pivotal challenge that you've then had to overcome, and how?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to reach back a couple of years when I was working with Bowden, and we had a complete platform rebuild, and then loads of opportunities to go into redesigning the UX and the CX across the site. And a business that was very driven and led by the design and the product and the buyers, and then digital and e-com were very much at the end of the chain. So the challenge for the digital and e-com team was to always kind of get our initiatives or ideas or thoughts or desires or anything the data was telling us back up the chain to the decision makers about how we should present the product to the customers, and what we were seeing from a on-site customer experience engagement, and how we could make that better, how we could make it more intuitive to the customer to find our products. One very specific example was the language that the brand was using to describe certain patterns. Bowden is very famous for beautiful dresses, lots of patterns, especially things with polka dots all over. Whenever they launch that in the new season, it's something that does particularly well. But the buying team and people in fashion don't necessarily call it spotty. They call it pattern. So in the filters and facets that a customer on the website, they will be searching for plain or pattern, and at a stretch you might have stripe. But the customer wants spotty. That's what they're looking for, that's what they've seen in the printed catalogue that the business first does. So we tried to start demonstrating by doing A/B testing and multivariate testing to kind of go, well, let's change some of the language around here. So we found a piece of data that told us what our customers were actually searching for, and we found language hierarchy that our customers were using when they got to the website, and started deploying those instead of the facets and filters that the PIM system and the buyers told us was how they wanted to organize the product. So the challenge in getting stakeholder buy-in to this change is really challenging, but as soon as you've got a piece of data, a test, an actual, the engagement's increased, the add to cart's increased, product discovery is increased, and therefore revenue is increased, you get to start using words like spotty, which the customer's actually looking for and will engage with, rather than pattern or plain or PK, which is a phrase I had no idea what that means, but apparently it's like knitted or something.
So that's a really interesting point you made there, Nick. It's what the customer, the language the customer chooses to use and what's happening within that demographic.
Yep.
And what the business thinks is the way they want to term and advertise and use. So that's an interesting point to think about. It doesn't happen with many products, but retail and fashion is going to be a significant one. Okay,
Yep.
Thank you for that. Millie, can I come to you with the same question, a pivotal challenge that you've
absolutely. So alongside our autumn-winter collection, we've launched a book which is aimed at bringing the interiors of the houses into the hands of the customer. And the reason why we've done that is, if you're a member, you've experienced our product within the houses, you're probably more likely to know and trust our quality and craftsmanship. But if you're a new customer, you might not have had that physical interaction. So how can we really go down that route and push down that route a bit more? And then I think there's always the complication of how do you join up a physical book and the on-site experience, and you can do a little bit via QR codes. Historically, people have done the page turning, which is all a bit tricky because you have to go through the whole thing, you're looking for what you're wanting, and then how easy is it for the customer to locate the product that they're looking for? So we really thought about this for quite a long time, and we have done the QR codes, but we've also created an on-site hub, which means that customers can quickly locate the different areas that they might be looking for. It might be inspired by a particular house and they can locate that section. We've then integrated hotspots so that they can quickly navigate to the product that they're looking for. You don't have to type in any product codes or even search any product names at all, and you can quickly find that information. And then the other thing that we came to was personalization on site, because you've got really two different types of customer. The members that really know and love our brand and are loyal and familiar with the brand, and then new customers that might not have much awareness of who Soho Home is. They might know who Soho House is, but not Soho Home per se. So we don't necessarily want to surface the same content to both those groups. So we show things like the brand statement to a customer that we know isn't necessarily as familiar, but for a member, then actually we surface different content, and we definitely saw that if score reach on the home page for a new customer gets past the brand statement, they're more likely to spend 20% longer on site, which is a really interesting statistic and definitely shows the importance of not assuming that a customer will already know who you are just because they're on your site. So yeah, I think that's something that we really...
Thank you. So there's quite a few areas and elements you chose to talk about there.
Yes.
One is customers that know your brand, but actually you talked about customers that don't and land on that page.
Yeah.
So it's a bricks to clicks, but these people are coming in from the clicks to bricks, so they only know you from what's online, and that's it.
Yeah.
So quite a few points you made about having to support them, but also using your data to make sure that the right products are surfaced in the right order.
Yeah.
So all about customer acquisition and onboarding there.
Yeah, absolutely. And also not hiding things behind overlays, really making it as easy for customers to locate the information that they're looking for, because it can be quite tempting for us on a PDP in particular to try and make things as streamlined as possible. But if you're then relying on customers finding that information or additional clicks, then whilst it might be intuitive for us, it's not necessarily intuitive for the customer. So we're really trying to think about the experience and effortless navigation on site all the time.
And testing, A/B testing.
Of course.
I'm going to go across to SJ. Same question, sorry.
It's all right.
Same question to you. I was mesmerised. Same question to you. So about a pivotal challenge that you've encountered, but you've overcome it. How did you do that?
I mean, I apologise to anyone who was on the post-purchase stage earlier, but I am going to talk about AI again, because for us, that was one of our biggest challenges, was what the world was like before we implemented it. So we weren't really giving our customers the best experience during our busiest trading periods. We were having long, very, very delayed response times, delayed resolutions for customers. And, your peak trade is such an important period, particularly for new customers as well. You have generally your highest proportion of new customers shopping with you, grandparents potentially shopping with AllSaints for their grandchildren or their children, so you want to give them the best experience possible, particularly when something goes wrong. And it's actually something I can honestly say we weren't doing too well prior to Q4 2023. But in September 2023, we wanted to really take the weight out of that process and sort of turn the noise down and look at AI of how we can automate, some of those very, very repetitive, what I call low-hanging fruit topics that you really just don't need a human expert CX brain for. I wanted my agents and my team to be handling a more varied workload, more complex cases, adding value and, providing really good service, which is very difficult to do when you're constantly firefighting. So I think that was the challenge. So what we did, we sort of partnered with an amazing AI partner, and we mapped out really what do our customers need from us in peak, and we went kind of through those journeys, those processes. Where can we automate to make this better? And again, automating isn't about always deflecting. It's actually about being able to resolve something fully and making someone whole. So we really focused on the top driving areas where we could make impact, which mainly was sort of Wizmo, so where's my order, the classic, where's my return, where's my refund, how do I return this, I got it as a gift, how can I return this, can I use this promo code? So we looked at those real top contact drivers, and we mapped out process to utilize process-driven AI, essentially. It's a very intentional kind of AI. And the results we saw off the back of that were incredible. So again, for anyone who was at the other one, I'm sorry you're going to hear it again, but we actually reduced our average response time by 50%. We reduced our winter peak agent recruitment by about 40%. We saw much faster resolution times, and obviously we were 24/7 as well with a chatbot visible to a customer. So it really helped us improve our service proposition.
So a lot there to unpack. The first thing being you want to introduce some new technology, and you partnered with an expert, which is what most organisations do. You bring in those specialists.
Talk to someone that knows what they're talking about.
But finding someone is the tricky bit. So
it is, because there's so many great people out there. You just have to look for the best fit for what you need, your business, and just be really super clear on what the use case is. Yeah.
And then the next thing you talked about was using your data and insights to then decide what the priorities were, what you were going to automate and work through a long, I guess, laborious activity of discovery and assessment before you...
Exactly. That's what it enabled.
Got some great results.
We really did. Yeah. We really did. And I actually think those results are going to continue the more we improve the process generatively, but also process-driven as well.
And can I ask what the employees thought of this new tech coming in and changing?
So I can't hear you, sorry.
I was going to say, what do the employees think of the new tech changing their roles?
I'll be honest with you, to begin with, they were like, oh my God, the robots are going to take over and replace me, all very doom and gloom. But actually, and also they were like, oh, I'm a customer and I shop on this website and I really hate a chatbot, so annoying. But when they saw the demo of what we had built, they were like, oh my God, can we have it now? I wanted it now. So the most important part of this process isn't just all the technology and all that process you have to go through, but it's also making sure your CX team are super engaged and on board with what you're doing. And when they saw the kind of interaction that it could have and the way that it could make their life easier, they were absolutely sold. I really got very little friction off the back of that.
But they were secure in the new roles that they'd be doing around the AI.
Yeah, and also the fact that they could focus for their development as well, and probably sanity to a point, on slightly more complex things, more challenging topics, adding value as well.
Fab. Thank you so much.
Of course.
So we're going to move on to our second question. So our second question is going to be around measures and metrics. So I'm going to come, Millie, to you. So what, in your opinion, is the best, I'm not saying it has to be singular, but measure of customer experience that you'd advocate? Can you talk us through a metric or metrics that you hold?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think conversion is the obvious one in terms of if a customer is coming to site and they're not moving through the funnel and they're not purchasing, then there probably is something that, en masse, if we're not seeing conversion, that is wrong with the customer journey. But I think that that's too simplistic. You need to dig into other metrics a little bit more to really try and investigate actually what are the difficulties within the journey. And three things I would instantly go to next are time on site, page load time, and bounce or exit rate. And the way in which I try and talk about the importance of page load time is the analogy of sitting on the tube and you're kind of looking at your phone and it's taking a long time to load, and actually how long do you try and wait for something to load, and then how quickly do you move away, and if you do move away, do you then remember later, actually, I'll move back and I'll have a look at that, or I'll try and load that page now? It's probably fairly unlikely unless you're very loyal or know the brand quite well or they're really top of mind. And it's the same with page load time. If you've got really heavy imagery and probably across the site the page is quite slow to load, then it's really quite unlikely that a customer is going to keep on at it in terms of trying to visit products, add to bag, move through the funnel. So those are the key indicators that I would look at just to have a quick overview. And if we see a high page load time, then that would be my first sort of port of call to look at. Is bounce and exit rate high? Is time on site really low? And if so, then I think it's a really strong indicator that there's a little bit of a problem afoot. Okay,
so a lot of emphasis there on the front end, the acquisition, the onboarding, the sales funnel for you. That's key for you.
I think so. I think that would be my go-to.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to say, Nick and SJ, any other responses from your perspective and what you guys do? Yeah, go for it, Nick.
Yeah, revenue. At the end of the day, and I was talking about this earlier in my talk this morning, we spend an awful lot of time navel gazing at conversion rates and site speeds and AOVs and UPTs and everything else, and these are all important metrics, but they're all either lead or lag metrics. Ultimately, what revenue are you taking is the most important thing, and then work back up from that. And then, actually, I think customer lifetime value, we shouldn't just be looking at what we sold last week when we do our trade report. We should be looking at what is the trend in the last 12 months. And so what is our customer lifetime value? What's our RFM curve looking like? Hopefully it's curving up, but for a lot of businesses in e-commerce, especially in the markets that we've had over the last couple of years, it's definitely declining, and we're selling into a much more discount-led kind of environment, and that doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. So revenue, customer lifetime value.
Bottom line revenue, it's a big hitter for you. SJ, any
I don't know, I think a little bit more holistically, and sorry Nick, I actually couldn't hear what you said, so I might be repeating some of what you said. I think a bit more holistically about it, because I actually think a measure of CX is actually how many customers bother returning to your brand.
Or return.
I'd be looking at how many returning customers I had. I agree with Millie in terms of looking at sort of that purchase funnel as well, like where are people dropping off, but really how many people are returning and shopping with your brand regularly. That probably mirrors a little bit of what Nick was saying. So I would be looking at that. I'd also be looking at returns rates and reasons of why people are returning things. I'd be looking at, if something's too big, too small, I'm really doing something wrong on the website. Yeah. It's either not shot properly, it doesn't make sense, the dimensions aren't clear, the relative fit's not there. So I'd be looking at returns rates. And I know I'm going to die on a hill, guys, because I actually think Net Promoter Score is actually a really important metric. And I know that's a bit of a contentious topic in the industry at the moment, but from our perspective, AllSaints and John Varvatos, our customers are really engaged and they're quite vocal and really candid. and they tell you what they really love, and they tell you what they really, really hate. So for us, our score, I think, is reflective of the customer sentiment. Now, is it our entire customer base? No. Is it a proportion of, post-purchase experience? Yes. But these are the people who are buying from you, and these are the people who are engaged with your brand, and we should be listening to them. So I do think Net Promoter Score would be something else I would look at. So I would say returns rates.
Yep.
I would say the volume and percentage of returning customers coming back to your brand, and I would say keep an eye on your Net Promoter Score. And if your customers aren't engaging with you through NPS, then maybe figure out what the message is and try and get that engagement and interaction. And then use that feedback. So I have a so what now what mentality with my team. It's great, we've got this feedback, so what, and then now what you're doing with it, and what are we going to do to make things operationally better, improve service, improve size and fit, improve returns processes, things like that.
Amazing. And I was just going to ask a bonus question on this one, listening to you guys. Your and Millie's statements were quite complimentary. Nick was like revenue, I just want to know the bottom line. But can I just ask, is there it's a bit of an odd one, is there a metric or a measure that you don't have in the business at the moment that you would aspire to?
I'd say for AllSaints, for AllSaints, I'd say that would be customer lifetime value.
Okay.
I think we've got a lot of work to do in terms of really aggregating. We've got got good data sources. They're just not pulled together properly yet. So I'd say the aggregation of and then the democratization of that data, I think would really help us, and it would help us drive customer lifetime and give us a really pure view of it. So I'd say that would be the key for us.
And it's hard to do, as you said.
Yeah, it is. But there are some good solutions out there, and it is on our radar, and it's something that we want to pull together.
Thank you. Cool. Let's go to the next question, and this one's for you, SJ. So thank you.
Okay.
Good on the third question already. You're going to tell me. I know we're going to talk about your favourite topic. How do you balance innovation with day-to-day delivery to your customers?
Well, I think innovation improves your day-to-day delivery, right? So I think I'd flip that on its head a little bit and say that you have to innovate and stay up to date with improved services, improved technology to help you manage your day-to-day. So I would say it's a balance of, understanding your challenges in the day-to-day to then figure out what innovation and technology you need to address it.
It's always a challenge with resources, isn't it? Because if
they're
caught up with
it can be resources, it could be data, it could be whatever your challenge is in your day-to-day delivery. It doesn't matter what your role is. It's okay, this is my challenge. Can innovation or technology help me fix it? And I'd say 9 times out of 10 it probably could.
Fabulous. Thank you. Any thoughts on that, Nick and Millie? Nick?
I would certainly agree absolutely with SJ, and I think the point is, innovation absolutely can come along. Generally, plugging something else into your website becomes a multiplier. So the day-to-day has to be really solid in the first place. Your foundations have to be great, you have to understand it, your site needs to be working well, you need to have eliminated the bugs and got all of that out of there, so you know what your baseline is, and then innovation is something that you add on top, whether it's a new bit of kit or technology, something you're investing in as a business. Make sure again, when you put it in, you're using it 100%. You understand it, and you don't go, okay, we've plugged that on, oh, it's made a little difference to a couple of the metrics, now let's go out shopping for the next sticking plaster that we need to throw on top, which is a habit that businesses who are making money and growing absolutely have. I think your point's absolutely right. The resource that is required to do that, and I subscribe to cash, yes, but also every person on every team that I've ever managed in any business can keep themselves busy 9 to 5, 5 days, absolutely 9 to 5 days a week. Just practically doing admin and sending emails.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, well, how are we going to add more? You can't always scale up the team and just bring in new heads. You can bring in a partner or a consultant to kind of help with that. But actually, it's the team who are sitting there who have to deliver and have to start using the new tools, the innovation. So take that 10% of their time and make sure they're not doing anything else other than working on innovation or experimenting, thinking outside the box. That's an afternoon. 10% of your time is an afternoon a week. Have a Friday afternoon when you don't do BAU, and actually you work on the new projects that are coming, or training, or learning, or attending online webinars or something like that. That's the way to keep the innovation wheel turning. Otherwise, you forget about it for 6 months, you go through peak, you don't touch it at all, and then all of a sudden, oh crap, the number's not quite as good as it was last year. We need to go and spend some money, or we need to throw something at the site. You just got to keep it a constant
So I was going to
wheel.
ask tips and tricks for driving innovation as well. So you're saying we've got to set some time aside. There is resource available. It's just doing other things, and it's about acknowledging what's priority, what's not, and then creating and carving out some time. So certainly, when I've been working on lean projects or lean initiatives, we talk about 1/5 of your time, and that sounds scary. But up to 1/5 of your time in a week and a day should be spent on stopping, looking at and assessing your current state and what the opportunities and problems have been, which then drives those questions and possible solutions. But yeah, I'd be just interested, again, how do you drive innovation whilst you balance your BAU with the limited resources you have?
I completely agree, and in that vein, something that I really try and encourage everyone to do is to think, just in your personal time, when you're shopping a site, what's great and what's tricky, what looks good from a customer experience and a customer journey, and actually what was tough and maybe meant that you then didn't move down the funnel or didn't purchase from that company. So for instance, actually, there's some things that you can solve in-house, like attribution. It can be really frustrating when you use filters or even search and the products that you're expecting to see then don't appear, and that's probably to do with patchy attribution, which then you can really get into the detail of within the team. But actually, in terms of what those filters should be, where they should be on the page, what that looks like, that maybe is a larger question. And then that question might be, do we want to work with any third parties? Are there any search tools, natural language processing, machine learning that we want to use? And that's probably a bit of a longer consideration period, and maybe also a bit more scrutiny around return on investment. And it's equally as important, but you just have to get that balance right.
Fabulous. We've kind of cleared our three main questions, but I was thinking as you guys were talking, we were talking about metrics and we talk about customer and we're talking about customer language. One of the things I'm thinking about is how do you best get the information from your customers about what they want to see? So we talked about MPS rather, and that's more of a qualitative, not quantitative. We're not getting a lot of information, we're getting the stats.
Yeah.
What are the main mechanisms that you think are ideal, you use now or would aspire to use, that help you understand more about the customer? So who would like to take that first? Nick,
you ready?
I'll do it, yeah.
Yeah.
The quickest and most obvious one, and if people aren't doing it on a weekly basis, just look at what your customers are searching for on your own site.
Okay.
And then look at what they did 12 months ago, if you can, for the month ahead. So now's brilliant, right? We are transitioning, the weather is changing. With Raging Bull, all summer it's been shorts at the top of the list, top of the search terms. Literally last week it changed to gilets. And so, are we ready? Have we got, we knew this was coming.
Sure.
For the rest of September, have we got lots of content? Have we got our categories filled with our product? Turns out that we've got only half the stock, and a shipment of gilets is coming in about 6 weeks' time, which is too late because the customer wants it now, and they're ready, and they will go elsewhere if they don't find the depth and the sizes and everything available to them. But yeah, having that look, that's the customer is just telling you. They're engaging with your site. They're going, yeah, I'm going to tap in a search.
Raw data. This is what I want. You may or may not have it. This is what I'm looking for.
That's what I need. So yeah, really simple one.
So it's about synthesizing that, breaking that down and making sense of it and trending it, and that's the hard bit with unstructured data, which again a search would be unstructured. I just put words in for something. Like you said, spotty dress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, where's that? Where's the spotty dress that I saw? I can't find it.
Just say, I don't think I said spotty dress, because then you guys talked very eloquently about the results that the CX initiatives drove. Spotty dress was worth £3.5 million in uplift.
Really?
Yeah, £3.5 million,
Crazy.
changing from pattern to spotty.
That is quite scary.
Yeah.
But again, that's the language of the customer, isn't it?
So that raw data is valuable in many ways.
No, I agree. I think search is really important. The customer is literally telling you. The other thing I think for retail businesses is being really joined up with your retail bricks and mortar operation and actually really knowing how customers are interacting with your product in store. I think that is a gold mine for example, this is selling really well in store. You want to make sure it's very easily accessible, searchable on your website, and vice versa. So this is working really well on the website.
Yeah, Millie said that.
Make sure that's on a face out as you walk into a store, and then suddenly you sell through all those leather jackets, for example. So yeah.
You're very right. People get attracted to what they've seen
Correct.
elsewhere, and that's what they look for. If they can't find it, they get a bit disillusioned.
They do.
With the whole website experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a very good point. So I think with digital, there are lots of opportunities. What we're saying, the searches, the keywords used, filters, a number of things you can use to track. But it's got to be broken down and understood. It's hard to crunch some of that data, and you may not report all of it, I assume, because there's only so many reports you can read, and so it's a prioritization exercise. Nick just went, yeah, there's a lot of reports to be read. So we've got about 10 minutes left. So I was going to hover into questions from our audience, if there's any questions for our panel. One or two? Anything that struck a chord with you you'd like to know a little bit more about from those that have done it?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. If you can let us know who, if you've got a special panelist in mind.
Hi, my name is Tony. This is actually open to all of you.
Can't hear.
A little loud here.
I can't hear.
I think we're really struggling to hear the question.
Sorry.
Got
Oh,
number
thank
one.
you.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
And
thanks.
then,
Am I loud? I sound
thank
too loud.
you.
You're going to have to put our headphones on because... There you go.
Oh, I can hear now.
He's got a lovely voice.
Hi, my name is Tony from Tagless. This is probably more towards the fashion merchants here. But when it comes to customer experience, availability of sizes also becomes kind of important.
Yeah.
How do you consider that today in terms of ensuring you have a full size curve right on top of your search results or your collection pages?
Dive in first.
Yeah, you go. Yeah.
So sort orders is hugely important for the browsing and the navigating customer. And everything, I mean, there's a ton of vendors here who want to help with that, from Bloomreach over there and a bunch of others. And you just basically make sure that you've got something running in your algorithm that says variant availability, and boost that up to the top. When you get into the difficulty with fashion is always when you get into the end of a season and you start doing sales, clearance sale, for example, and the stock starts to fragment and you're not, restocking in those especially sizes. And the customer, the experience frustration comes when they're clicking into a product that they do really want and it's featured, and then they don't have it in a medium or an XL or whatever else. Right at the top of that page, in the clearance collection, if you like, have a shop by size tab. You'll have it in the facets and filters, but it'll be tucked away, something you have to open and expand and click, I want, these two sizes, and then it might sort it for you. Just make it bold. That's going to happen. It happens every season. We get to the end of the season, it's the summer sale. We're going to sell through the core sizes first, and depending on what the buy was, we've probably got a 6XL and an extra small still available. But encourage the customer to do that filtering up front and make it a really, really prominent choice. That's something I've done on a few sites. Seems to make a difference. Less dead ends, less dead products.
So again, that information or that insight might come to you, Nick, from complaints. People can't find the stuff, or abandoned carts where they've clicked on something a few times and they're not, and it might be the size.
Yeah.
But as you're saying, kind of use the customer insight at that point and think, if size is the most important and you need to validate that, how? Let's exactly promote those things and prioritize those things on the website.
Size and availability. Your point's absolutely right. The insight came from starting to run a report of products that didn't sell but had high page views. The opposite of what we normally report on, which is what are our top 20 best sellers.
Interesting.
We started to report on, and actually we were doing it on third-party retailers first. We started to report on products that weren't selling so we could figure out why. Is the price too high? Is the product imagery rubbish? And to SJ's earlier point, what individual products or product sets or types are getting the highest returns? We've got a problem with our jackets or blazers because they've got a much, much higher return rate than our t-shirts and shirts and jeans and things like that. Did
you make a theoretical assumption that it was the sizes was the reason, or were you able to gather evidence for that? And how did you do that?
So the number of page views, the variant availability directly correlated to the lower conversion rate at a product level. So we started out with these two metrics and it was like, oh, surprise, surprise. The products that have a very low individual conversion rate but are getting a lot of clicks are also the ones which are most fragmented. So can we put one little step in first for the customer, which will get rid of that frustration? And
it worked.
Absolutely, especially at those periods of the year. Not so great, doesn't really matter too much when you've got good stock and good availability.
It was a hypothesis, wasn't it? You'd had to test it by doing what you did, and when it worked, we were right.
Yeah.
Less of that, yeah. Oh, no question. Hello.
Oh, hello. I just thought it was really interesting what you said about the gilet. And because, of course, you have the data that is last year's.
Yep.
But what happens with global warming? And the reason why I'm asking is because one of my customers that's in the kind of home and garden space, they had the same issue the other way around. They had loads of fans that they had overstocked. They couldn't sell them because then it started raining in the UK.
Yep.
And so the interesting thing is what happens. I mean, do you think there's going to be like an AI solution that suddenly is going to kind of link the weather in the UK to... So, I don't know, that's kind of a question.
No, it's a really good point, actually. And beyond what our own intelligence is about our own kind of customer and behavior, and for this particular brand, it's quite a small niche, audience. They're all sort of really shopping in the same space, so the bulk of them will give us those seasonal trends. But Google will kind of, identify those things for you. We were told in April by the performance agency that we work with that polo shirts will be peaking on the 25th of May or whatever it was. And it was like, oh, right, okay. That's really good insight to know. That's come directly from Google. We expect this to happen. Around peak, it all gets a bit messy because they'll be telling us that our brand terms are going to be trending. And we're like, yeah, that's because we went into massive sale last year. But yeah, those kind of insights are out there and you really have to lean on. It's difficult to do that in a small in-house team. But if you can lean on your partners, the agencies who have relationships with Google and where big data really exists, that's super valuable stuff.
So good, solid insights and partners that can get you there. Any other questions? Oh, one from the corner.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yeah, sorry. Hey, James from Vault.io. How do you deal with the increase in chargebacks and fraud during peak? And then also, I'm a big fan of planning from a seasonality perspective. How far in advance of different seasonality trends do you plan as a team? Do you look like a quarter in advance, 2 quarters, or do you just freestyle it?
I can take the fraud piece. So firstly, in terms of chargeback spikes, I mean, we're quite lucky in the sense that we have a great fraud partner. It's all identity driven, not fraud rule manually, which can be a bit clunky. So we actually don't see a massive spike in chargebacks, relatively. But before we did that, we absolutely did. And I would say the planning for that took some time. Not just in terms of, and almost last year, when you look at last year, that's too old. Because as we know in fraud and payments, things change so significantly pretty quickly as well. So you really need to kind of be up to date with your fraud and payment partners on what's happening now, what trends are happening now, and if you are in a position where you're having to, create manual kind of fraud rules and things like that, just making sure that and I know this is like the bread and butter of fraud prevention, but just that you're not keeping an innocent person captive and you're not holding your genuine customers back whilst you're sort of, taking care of those fraudsters sort of first and third party, if you know what I mean. I hope that makes sense. But in terms of peak planning, I would say for us, I actually don't think that ever stops. I know that's a really generic answer, but I genuinely think that you're always learning and thinking, okay, what are the lessons learned from this peak? What's happening now? And you're just always thinking, I can do this because it will make peak easier. I can do that because that's going to make a difference here. So I would kind of say, in my world at least, it feels like it's 24/7.
Can I ask the peak planning question to you, Millie, as well?
Yeah.
So you're dealing with homewares, furniture, interior design. How does the peak planning work for you?
So we're a highly curated business, so we probably do the planning 6 months in advance. We do H1 and H2, but I would say within that, we are also a reactive business. So as you were mentioning with third-party tools, whether it be not so much weather or seasonality quite as much for us, but through personalization, we can really implement content that's most relevant for the customer at that time. Then also, actually, if we're needing to push something or we see something that we're really wanting to get under the skin of, then I think being reactive is really key. From a fraud perspective and fraud planning, then it is something in the US, in particular via Amex, that the charges are really high. And it's something that we haven't fully got under the skin of yet because it's very difficult to pull back. And I think eBay actually have decided they're not now using Amex on site, or not allowing customers to. There's a bit of a workaround with PayPal, and that's one way you can really reduce those chargebacks. But I think the worry is that you're also preventing conversion. A lot of our customers, a huge amount actually, do use Amex at this point. So it's about the team being in place to be really reactive so that they can work with partners and really get under the skin of what's a genuine issue and what maybe isn't, and then handle each that way. So yeah, that's probably my answer to that.
So hopefully that covered a variety of questions there. Do we have any more questions? Oh, gentleman at the back. Last question.
Hi there. I hope you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
Quick question from my side would be, what technology, or how would you select the right technology vendor? And in the last 12 months, what technology have you guys implemented that you wish you had implemented much earlier?
Who'd like to take that one?
I can tell you a story, and this is absolutely not me, but I did inherit a supplier who had been chosen, and the guy who was outgoing in the role said they bought me the best steak, and that was the reason for working with these particular people. That's definitely not what I would recommend and suggest. Look, I think, whenever you go into that sort of tender process, and I think this is really interesting with, you as a business have identified a need or an opportunity to do better, to provide better customer experience, or to sell more, or to do, put in a piece of technology that you think is really genuinely going to move the needle. Then you have to get out into the marketplace and you have to listen to the sales pitches and you have to give it the time and go through the demos. But gather opinion, become part of the groups, the WhatsApp groups that, loads of heads of e-commerce and digital marketing managers are all part of, and really find out, speak to people who have implemented it and did it move the needle, and was their support good? You have to take your time to do it, because simply the demo and the number that they quote, average uplift of X, is just not going to be good enough. And so, if you're going to invest in something, you're working in a business and you feel like it's not really my money, it's just the budget I've got to spend, that mentality has to go, because if it doesn't deliver, it will come back and bite you. And take your time. The vendors are trying to get you to sign up to something in the next 6 weeks. As soon as you've had a call with a sales guy who's given you a demo of a new piece of kit, you know that they've put it down in their numbers. They're like, I'm totally going to sell to these guys by the end of next month. But I think probably all of us plan our budgets for the following financial year. So like October time, we're going to be having all of those conversations, forecasting what we think we might need to invest in, and then we've been having the conversations with potential suppliers this year to do a project in 2025. Unfortunately, you've really got to do the legwork, because everyone will tell you that it's going to make a massive difference and it's going to be brilliant and you should buy it.
I would agree with that completely. Sorry, go for it.
I was just going to say, with every vendor as well, there's the whole customer journey with them. So it's about whether you think you're going to get adequate support subsequent to that sale. Yeah. And that's the make or break. They've sold you this dream, and then subsequently, are they there to support you when things go wrong? Are they living up to the agreement and what they did? And you can only find that by spending, like you said, take your time and spend your time going and working with these people to go through the quotes and the opportunities and the pricing, but also the functionality. And to echo what you said, we did have a vendor that was very upset, thought he was going to get the deal, didn't, and demanded a meeting with us for us to explain to him why he didn't get that sale.
I've been there, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's awkward, and it's like, well, I mean, the others did this, that, and the other, but that's for you to find out. You're the vendor. You should be looking at your peers, and you should be providing that. And luckily, we didn't go with him because we realised that this was going to be a difficult person to work with. So there's that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've come to the end of our time. Yeah, so thank you very much to everybody. Thank you for the questions. Thanks for listening to us. If you've got any questions, the panel will hang around for a few minutes.
Thank you.
I think, if I'm running off. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Should we do